Good evening. All right, well, welcome back to QuickBooks and Advanced Bookkeeping. So today we're going to work with our customers, and we're going to do something a little bit different. It's going to be very similar to what we've done before when we sell them items. We are going to do the paperwork, but in this case, it's not going to be a quick one-step shot to our checking account. So here's the scenario. You may have customers that pay, say, by paper check, and they come in throughout the day. And at the end of the day, you want to take them to the bank and deposit them. What we've been doing now, by the time you deposit them, they're already showing in your account, because as soon as you receive them, you're entering them into the computer as payments, right? Even though the physical payments, the checks, are sitting on your desks. So it's not going to be in the account yet. So if you want to sync that up, you can do what's called the undeposited funds account. And it's just kind of a temporary holding account that when you do the, you receive the items or the payments, you basically will tell the computer, we've got them in my hand, but not in the account yet. So the advantage of this is the bank records will more closely resemble your records when you're done. The downside is you got to remember to make deposits. So you still are going to the bank physically, and then when you drop them off and make the deposit, then you come back and square it up with QuickBooks. So it's one way to make your bank account more accurately sync up with what's actually happening in the real world. It's not required that you use it, but it is helpful, especially if you have, say, more than one person doing accounts receivable. Each person might be responsible for their own deposit, or you could be joining a couple of different people's work together to make one big deposit. And it's just a way to double check. And as you'll see, when you make the bank deposit at the bank and you come back, they'll give you a receipt, right? Or they'll email it to you, or however they do it now. And at the bottom, it'll give you the grand total. When you tell QuickBooks, all right, I'm ready to deposit, that total should match. And you'll see that as we go along. So like I said, it is totally voluntary to use it. QuickBooks doesn't require it. And it's really easy. Again, easy to learn, takes a while to master. Because one of the things I said is it's kind of an extra step to make sure that everything's done correctly. However, there are times where when you come back and you're ready to make your deposit, the amounts don't match up. So what happened? I don't know. It could be one of the checks when you're stacking them up slipped behind the desk or something. So somehow one of the deposits didn't get in. So then you have to go and reconcile. But again, that's a good thing rather than having wrong information go to the bank. And now the bank's going to disagree with your QuickBooks checking account register. So let's get started. So we'll start off with doing it as a sales receipt. So if you click on New and go to Sales Receipt, like we do for our customers, it's going to bring up the sales receipt. And everything is going to be exactly like we did it before. The one thing that's going to be different here is we're going to deposit to, and this time, instead of the checking account, we're going to say payments to deposit. So again, you can pick the customer, any customer, pick the products. Do 7 hand sanitizers. If you want to track the customer's payment method, it could be right here. If you're doing a check, you can put in a check number and things like that. So that's exactly the same. The only thing that's different is this payments to deposit. I'm going to click Save and New because I'm going to do another one. So go ahead and do another one, pick another customer. Again, any customer, any item. Now, the second time I do it, you'll see QuickBooks here now sets it to payment to deposit. I have the wrong date on mine. Okay, it's from yesterday. All right, so it's payments to deposit instead of checking. Can I go back? Maybe this one I want to send directly to checking? Sure, I can change it right there. But I don't want to do that. So this time I'm going to sell some tire cages. I think I'm running low on those. Oh yeah. You'll see here, because I put my reorder point in, that I do get a little yellow warning I'm running low on those. I saw it yesterday and I didn't bother to fix it. Okay, and then there's one more for good measure. So a third customer. And this time I'll save and close. All right. So if I did try to go into my check register, I look at my check register, I look at for today and say, hey, there's no deposits today. What? Well, that's holding it. That's that little hold. It's kind of like a pocket. So it's just going to hold them till you're ready to make the deposit. Well, I'm ready to make the deposit. So I click up here on new, and then under other, you'll see there's this bank deposit. That's what you want. Click new, bank deposit. Here. All right, so now, first thing it's going to ask you is, where does the deposit go? And you'll see it's defaulting to our checking account. So that's good. But it could go to any account you have. There's no restriction on that. I could send it to petty cash. That would be kind of odd. But if I want to send it to savings, again, this has to follow with whatever you did with the bank. So when you took all your payments down, they could be cash payments. If you operate quarter machines, it could be boxes of quarters. So like if you have a laundry service or something like that, whatever kind of deposit it is, you're carrying it over and making the deposit with the bank. So it's going to be in my checking account. It'll be today's date. And again, you can use tags if you want to categorize this deposit for some reason and make a little reminder for yourself so you can search for it later. But I'll leave that blank. And down below now, I've got my 3 sales receipts. So it even tells me that they are the sales receipt, the type. Okay. As we'll see later, they could be payments from invoices. It could be both. What is going to be a little different about this screen is up until now, QuickBooks has been putting check marks, doing stuff, filling in for us. This one you kind of have to do on your own. So I want all 3 of these checked. I can click 1, 2, 3, or I click up here, or you'll see select all. Okay. If it's a mistake, oops, I don't want them all, I click clear all. For 3, not a big deal, but if you had 30 items here, it's easier to clear all rather than uncheck them all. Same with select all. So you can use either way, select all, or you can put the check marks in. Sometimes just because it's like you're doing this at the end of the day, it just feels good to put check marks in. Just click, click, click. But either way. Now, let's say you had 30 here, and there's one that there was question. Let's say you spilled coffee on it. Right now, you can't see the signature. So the bank might not take it. Right? Sure enough, you get there. They say, nope, sorry, I can't take it. All right. So I can come back when I make my deposit. I can select all and then clear the one that didn't get deposited. Because again, you're trying to make this reflect what happened in the real universe. Okay. So again, if you want to add memos here, if you put references here, they'll show up. However you did it in the first screen, will appear here. And then this actually is the magic right here. This number. Because your bank deposit on the deposit slip should look like this. So whatever receipt they give you, you should have the same numbers. And if not, that's when you got to go back and say, all right, what happened? And by the way, banks do make mistakes too sometimes. So it's not just necessarily on your end. It can be on the bank's end too. You will see down below, we have one more box here. This is additional funds to deposit. If in addition to your invoices and sales receipts, you had some other money to go into the account, you can do it here and make it one deposit. So if you received cash for some reason that didn't go through the accounts receivable system, you can add it right there. You'll notice you've got a cash back goes to, and then cash. So when you're making a deposit, you can tell them, okay, I need 20 back for my petty cash. All right. Then what I would do here is say petty cash and change that account to petty cash, and then put a cash back amount here. Just for demonstration, I'm going to do it right now and see how it deducted it. So what it'll do is deposit $64.47 into checking and 20 into petty cash. Take that out. If you're doing returns, you'll see there's a box here to track returns for customers. Again, we're not going to do that, but there is a memo here. If there's a note, like let's say that there was a mistake, you can put a note here, notation as to what happened. Luckily, this is going to be a perfect deposit. And then once again, you've got attachments. You can make recurring if it's a recurring deposit. It's kind of hard because there's, you're coming from different customers. So this screen doesn't really lend itself to make recurring very often. But if you had a manual dollar amount, for some reason, somebody dropped off $20 every day as a donation because they love your business, then that's kind of odd and wouldn't fit anywhere else. And they do it every month. You could set it up to do something like that. And then once again, we've got cancel and clear. So cancel will just close this window and not save anything. Clear wipes out the data and lets you start over. But we're not going to do that. I'm going to save and close. All right, so I'm going to take a look at it, make sure it worked right. So I'll go to my chart of accounts by going to accounting, chart of accounts. And there's my checking. I want to view the register. And here we go. $84.47 deposited. Now you'll see when I've done these before, I'll see the name of the customer. It's not there. The reason is it can't fit everybody in there, even though I've only got 3. So same with on the account. So if I hover over the split, I can see it's 3 sales receipts combined. See, that's description of why it's split. So that's one of the differences too, is in the check register, you won't see everybody's individual deposits. They're all grouped together now. You can still get to them, but now they're one big group.
Would this be used kind of like, let's say someone does like at a fair or something, and you're selling and you're doing all these electronic, and then you go home and then you track those, you do sales receipts.
Yeah, probably. I would think at a fair you'd be using sales receipts rather than invoices because you're not going to let them pay later. They got to pay there. Otherwise, they can't
They've
leave.
already paid,
right?
Because they pay electronically or whatever, with a credit card.
Yes.
But it's not getting transferred here, so you can go home and do sales receipts, so it gets into QuickBooks.
Yes, depends how you do it. So let's say that you're a fair vendor, and you're selling ShamWows, right? All right, so they pay cash. All right, so you send them a sales receipt, you take the cash. Okay, so then at the end of the day, you've used the sales receipts to keep tabs of how much cash you have. If it's right, you go to the bank, take the cash, put it in the bag, put it in the window, they count it. It should come up the same numbers. Yes, you come back and you could do that as undeposited funds. During the day, you can record it to undeposited funds and then make your deposit at the end of the day. However, nowadays, of course, they've got those credit cards. You can get a Square. It's a little free gadget.
Yeah, a lot of people.
They stick it on their phone. You can run their card through it. So if you're doing it through the cards, it's by itself its own quote unquote undeposited funds, meaning you're using a card vendor. So they're collecting it for you. And yes, they're going to do it as one deposit that will clear at midnight usually. It kind of depends on the place, but that's pretty common. So you'll get the money the next day. Some places will give it to you immediately. Then it's not really undeposited funds. So then they're tracked individually. So, and then you can also use the option of having a deposit, single deposit. So that would be another option, is using cards. But if it's like a cash basis, then yes, definitely. And in fact, say if I were a fair vendor, I would not be using this version of QuickBooks. I could use this version of QuickBooks for my general accounting, but for the day-to-day or transaction-to-transaction items, I would probably use what's called the POS, point of sale. So it's basically a cash register, but you stick your laptop into it, or now you can use a tablet or whatever. And as you're doing the transactions, you don't have to ask them for their name or anything and write them a sales receipt with their name on it. It's just anonymous. And then, $14.95, please, and they pay you $14.95 direct. Exactly, goes in the till. Your computer says, okay, $14.95 on one sale for a ShamWow. Is in the next one. And then I got to give them change. It tells me how much change goes back, and it should be keeping an accurate count of the till. So at the end of the day, you can run it, and it will again do one deposit. It's kind of a de facto undeposited funds. Deposit into your account, and then your funds are available. So it just kind of depends on the style that you're doing. And we're using a fair analogy. So if you're selling things like a ShamWow or pickles, or they have all kinds of beef jerky and things, those things you really don't need to keep track of your customer. On the other hand, if you're selling solar installations, then you definitely, you're gonna say, okay, let's fill out your information here. Can I get your address, your phone number, contact, just like you do in QuickBooks. So it just kind of depends on the style and the convenience. There are other programs, QuickBooks not the only one out there, that will do that. Like I said, Square is one of they're not competitors. And one of the things Square will do, and almost all of them do, is they will allow you to import it into QuickBooks. And they'll say the option, import to QuickBooks. So it'll come up here, and then you tell it how you want to import it. So that's essentially like an undeposited funds account too. So yeah, there's all kinds of options. And in fact, so many it can be confusing. But you just have to kind of experiment, find what works best for your business. But yeah, so that answers your question in a long way. With all the different types of transactions now, yeah, just amazing. But it's convenient. And when you're doing it, again, say we're at the fair, but even regular stores, you want your customers to do impulse buys at the fair, because you're in a fair mood. I'll buy this. This looks cool. And then you get home and you think, why did I pay this for this? It's terrible. But that's the way it works, is you're trying to get people to move fast, get excited, buy it, and maybe even come back and buy another. So in that case, you don't want to slow them down by having to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork. So keep those anonymous. And then, if nowadays, a lot of people like to pay on a card. And some places, like some of the grocery stores, if you want to do self-checkout, you have to use your card. If you want to use cash, go get in line with one of the clerks. And so it's a trade-off. So now some of them are starting to take Bitcoin, that you can have people pay with their Bitcoin accounts. And again, you don't have to know anything about it, because what they will do, they'll sell you a device, or it'll set up on your phone or your computer where it'll do the transaction automatically. And they'll have a card of some kind, like a Bitcoin card, and they will play with that. That's up to you if you want to take it. So more and more places are starting to do Bitcoin. So that seems to be the next big thing. Yeah, well,
I thought it was going to go away. Yeah.
Right now, it's one of those things, it's kind of teetering. So more places are starting to accept it, but they've ramped up so long to get to this point that in the big bill they just passed in Washington, D.C., they just put a whole bunch of regulation on it. So the idea is if they regulate it, it makes it more stable. On the other hand, part of the whole charisma of Bitcoin was that it's not regulated. It's hands off of government. So it's kind of, to become mainstream, it has to give in some way, whether this is going to be the right way or not. I don't know. And then you can buy Dogecoin, which is another one. And that was started because somebody had a picture of their dog, and the dog was
Oh, that's how they got.
you actually, to be honest, and it's kind of far off of QuickBooks, but anybody on the planet can create their own coin. And you just sign up and what you want to call it, you start doing the marketing of it. And what they are, you're going to use either Bitcoin or Ethereum or one of those. And your coin is like a derivative of that. So it essentially is linked to those other coins. But then it can take off and it can be a millionaire overnight. And then you can lose it the next day. So, like I said, a lot of options for receiving payments. And I'm sure there'll be more to come. Where's, in fact, one of the Central American countries, is it Colombia? Anyway, one of them just made cryptocurrency an official, semi-official currency for their country. So we'll see how that works out. All right, so back to our undeposited funds. You'll see I've got my split up here. So there's my 84.47 deposit, and it worked. Now, if I had waited 2 days to get to the bank, let's say I was open on Thursday, so that was a Veterans Day, and the banks are closed. So I couldn't physically take it down. I could take it the next day. Again, when you make the deposit, just change the date. You can group multiple types of payments. So if you had some from the sales receipts, and then we're going to see some from invoices, those can be grouped together. They can be grouped over time. It's just whenever you make that deposit, that's when you want to record that date. All right, if there's no questions on that, let's go and practice it. So what we'll do, we'll make 5 sales receipts like we just did. But when you do them, to undeposited funds, let me use their terminology here. In the desktop version, they call them undeposited funds. Here, we're calling it payments to deposit. So by the way, if you're ever using the desktop version and you see undeposited funds, what it really means is payments to deposit. Then after you do that, we'll make the deposit. And this time, when you look at your split, you should see 5 items. I'm going to use Save Anew to do this. Just make sure you're set to payments to deposit. So I've done my 5 sales receipts just for fun. I went here to customers. Because they're sales receipts, you won't see them as open invoices or unbilled activity or even estimates, and they won't be part of the opening balance because they don't owe you. The customer's already paid you. That's the nature of the sales receipt. So really, unless you want to go through the chart of accounts, the only way to see them is to bring out bank deposits. And that's one of those techniques, like after, let's say I had done them, but I forgot to keep count. And you say, oh yeah, how many did I do? You can always just go look at how many are ready to deposit. There they are. Oh yeah, I got 5. So FYI, I just tried to save and close, and I got this warning. Something's not quite right. So what could it be? It says, please enter at least one item. I didn't put check marks. That's one of those things when you're in a hurry. I remember to put the check mark. Otherwise, my balance to deposit is 0. And the computer says, wait a minute, you don't want to make a 0 deposit. To see if you did it right, go into the chart of accounts, view the register, and you should see 2 splits, 134.03, there it is. Now, because we did 5, it ran out of room here to show everything. So if you want to see the recent deposits, I can click in the upper left-hand corner here, and it'll go back. So at any point, I can go to the bank deposit, and so I can click here on the bank deposit. And there's this little clock, that's the history. So by clicking on it, it'll show me my recent deposits. So there's my 134.03. I happen to know that's the one I did 5 sales receipts. I can click on that, and it brings it back up. So, as I mentioned, this is the way to track down missing things. And that tends to be, in my experience, the most common thing is somehow, like in the hurry to get to the bank before it closed, a check got left behind, or got stuck in a drawer, or put in a file or something, or somebody picked it up to go verify it or whatever, and didn't bring it back in time. And you kind of just assume it's there. And then when you look what the bank says, it's different from what you have. The other thing you can do is you can print this at any point. Let's see, there is a little print button at the bottom. And print it when you take it to the bank before you make the deposit, and then compare it to the bank point too. If you start finding that these things don't match up a lot, that's a good idea. Because like I said, could be something at the bank. So we're talking about how people handle it if you go offsite or someplace, or even if you just decide to try to use this as a point of sale system, you can. Some people like that because you can use this QuickBooks, but you have to buy a license. And then the point of sale system, you have to purchase, or still you're gonna have a license. They do it in combo, so it saves you a little money. But some people say, I don't want to do, I don't want to pay them nothing. So here's what I've seen done. As for customer, you could just say anonymous, but I'm going to do. We'll say anonymous or generic customer or something. And then just whenever you're going to have the sales receipt go through, use that person. And that means, just from experience, or you can put a note in the customer file that this is a generic customer. And you're not going to keep track of who they are, but this allows you to keep track of how many payments were processed that way. And then you can use a system pretty close to a point of sale system. Sales tax works the same way, by the way. So if you still have to collect it, so as long as you're in the same state, where it gets a little tricky is if you went to another state and they don't charge sales tax, or you don't have to charge sales tax, then what you can do is, like on this customer, you can turn it off. Turn the sales tax off while you're there. Do your transactions, and then when you come home back to California, turn it back on. Just don't forget. All right, so we have those in. Okay, so let's go back. Let's try a little experiment. This time, let's make two sales receipts directly to checking, then make 2 sales receipts to payments to deposit, then make deposit. we'll do 2 and 2. We'll do new sales receipt. Again, any customer, any items. But this time, I gotta switch back to my checking account. So I did my 2 directly to checking. I can verify that before I move on by going to my chart of accounts, check register. And there they are, 2 sales receipts. So I'm ready to do my other 2. This time, remember to switch to payments to deposit. So now when I go into my bank deposit, say, hey, there's only 2. All right, there should only be 2 because the other 2 were already deposited directly. This time we're using the indirect method. And again, I forgot to do my little check mark. So I get my warning again. Sure enough, there are my check marks. So there's my 2 sales receipts that I did directly to checking. And then together, combined into the split, the 2 that were deposited. Now I did my direct to checking first. So why does it show up, my deposits show up underneath? It's doing alphabetically by type. So they're on the same day. In the desktop version of QuickBooks, one of the things you can do is tell it to sort this by entry, and it actually will do chronologically by when it was processed. As far as the bank's concerned, and, it doesn't make much difference. Although, again, depending on if you're doing this by credit card, and we'll get into credit cards, but like a credit card can go immediately into your account. And when you do refunds can take up to 5 days. So, like we've got somebody call up and they bought something and then wanted to refund it right away because they spent money they didn't have. I said, well, where's my money? I don't see it yet. They, oh, we processed it, but our credit card company can take up to 3 to 5 days, 3 to 5 business days, of course. And they don't want that. They think, well, you took it out right away. Why can't I get it back right away? That's just kind of the way it works. So they called the credit card company, and they called us. Hey, we just got this call. Just to let you know. Told them the same thing. Sorry, just gonna have to wait. That's the way it goes. Now they could say, well, maybe you should use Bitcoin. I don't know if that. Actually, I've never processed one under Bitcoin. I need to do that just to try it. But yeah, I don't know how the refunds would work on that way. If they'd be any faster, they should. All right. So there we go. It's 6:52. We'll take a 10-minute break. We'll come back. Then we're going to try what we learned with invoices, because invoices can be done the same way when you receive the payment. All right, so again, we're going to use our payments to deposit, but this time we're going to do it with invoices. So it's the undeposited funds account. It's going to work the same way, except it really doesn't affect the invoice. It's when you do the payment. I did think of another circumstance when you might receive a payment as like a whole group at once. If you do ride sharing, see, Uber used to do it. Let's see, you get a choice. If you want the free deposit, you had to wait a week. So what it would do is accrue all of your earnings, and then at the end of the week, it gives you the deposit, like I think it was Sunday midnight or something. So then they came up with their own card. It was like a debit card, and if you use that, you could get it every night, but it was always after midnight. The other option too is you can get it at any time, but there will be a fee, or I think now Lyft changed it so you could do 3 free deposits in a day, but that's all. Anything above that, it costs you like 50 cents or something. So kind of different options, but that's a circumstance where you can accrue a lot of payments from your customers and then deposit them in one shot, like we're doing now. So there are other circumstances where that will apply. All right, so I said we're going to work with our customers and we're going to do invoices. So under sales and customers, we're going to do invoices the same way we did it before. So I'm just here at customers, so I can see my balances are 0. I'm going to create an invoice. This stage is exactly the same as we did it before. There is no difference. So again, the scenario is somebody's ordered it. They called you up, they send you a purchase order, you even faxed it or emailed it. You're going to process it, say, all right, here you go. So they wanted 5 bottles of hand sanitizer. Can do, happy to serve. There we go. Save and close. So that's just like we've done before up till now. Here you will see I have to receive a payment from them. So in this case, again, they're not waiting their 30 days. They're going to pay me now. So I'm going to go ahead and receive payment. It's at this stage, I need to change it from my checking to payments to deposit. So right there. Then it's going to hold it into my undeposited funds account. Right, but that's the only change you have to make. And you can do, I'll just do a save and close. All right, so I look, his opening balance is 0, or pardon, I keep saying opening. Open balance is 0. He doesn't owe us any money because he's already paid. But if I go over here and say, all right, well, let's see my checking account. I don't see him. Well, it's on hold, right? It's in that undeposited funds. So it's waiting for us to do the bank deposit. All right, well, before we do that, let's do at least one more. You could do it with just one, but that would be kind of odd because that's basically a straight deposit. So let's go back into sales, customers, I'll pick somebody else. On the bottom of my list. War and Peace, create an invoice. And again, the invoice is no different whatsoever. It's only receive payment. And again, I got payments to deposits selected. So I'll save and close. So now I've collected 2 payments ready to deposit. So let's go ahead and deposit them. So go up here to New, Bank Deposit. And sure enough, there they are, the two I just created. At this point, you'll see there is a subtle change or difference. They're going to say payment here rather than the direct sales that you saw before. So that's an indication that, well, this came from invoices. But as far as the deposit's concerned, it doesn't really care the source. If they're all paper checks, it doesn't matter if they came today or through the mail from a month ago. They're all going in today. So I need to select all. And at the top, I've told it from before, send it to my checking account. So it remembers, but it never hurts to double check that. Save and close. And now I can check my check register. And there it is, my 2. You'll see, again, it says 2 payments, as opposed to when I was doing my sales receipts. It tells you it comes from sales receipt. See how that works? So again, the scenario is they place the orders whenever they paid. So they paid by check. So we collected them on a desk in a little envelope, took the envelope into the bank, made the deposit, came back and recorded the deposit in QuickBooks. Everybody's happy. Until one of them bounces. And it's a mess. All right, so let's practice that one. There's a chance to make some money. We'll make 4 invoices. Any customers, any items. Here's your chance to make some profit. Then receive the payments to payments to deposit, not the checking account. Then make the deposit. So I did my 4 invoices. Now it's time to receive payments. And I made sure here, got this set to payments to deposit. Then I'm ready to make my deposit. Bank deposit. There's my 4. Make sure it's going to my checking account. Select all. Total of $167.80. I did a save and close. Now I'll check my check register. See if I collected $167.80. There it is. Again, if I want to see what I did, I can go back to bank deposit. Click this little clock up here. My last deposit. There's my 4. I can turn them off at this point. When I go to save it, I'll get a warning. And then I can always add her back in. So if there is a mistake, it's easy to fix. Two other e-commerce sites will do something similar. Amazon, if you set up an Amazon store, you don't get your money right away. They have a policy, again, depending how long you've been with them and the size you're at, that they hold the money. I think it used to be a week, but I think it's less now. I think it's just a couple of days. But essentially, it's a guarantee that you shipped it out and that the person got it and is happy with it and is not asking for a refund. So that way, they're trying to keep the scammer, from selling junk and getting away with it. So since there's a hold, it gives the customer a chance to say, no, I don't like this. Is the wrong thing completely. It was false advertising. Then Amazon can hold that money for as long as they need till they get it resolved. So it does slow things down. Now, there is a way, again, around that. If you are a trusted seller, they can shorten that time. So it's up to them too. But again, it kind of depends on your store and how you handle it. They also, the other way to do it, if you're really interested in Amazon stores, is you can send whatever you're selling to their warehouse. They like that the best. If it ships directly from the warehouse and Amazon handles all the shipping, of course, there'll be a small fee, but you don't have to mess with it. They'll do it, and then they will send your money sooner because they physically have the items and theoretically have inspected them and know that they're okay and these are the right things. So it gives it just a little bit more security. Costs the seller a little bit more, but at the same time, you don't have to stop what you're doing and go do a package because somebody just bought something. So if you're on your own, it's helpful to do that, just to save you a little time. And takes a little bit off the profit, but it's worth it. It saves you the time, and then you get your money faster. And then Etsy, they do too. When they have a sale, I believe now it's when you confirm the shipment that they will send you the money. But you have to hold they want your credit card for returns. And you have to agree that if there are returns, that you'll pay the return. Otherwise, they close down your shop. So that's how different e-commerce sites handle it. And both of those will also generate QuickBooks files. So if you want to integrate your QuickBooks into those accounts, you can. Anything to make it easier. So any questions on how we just did that? Pretty straightforward, right? All right, so now let's make it confusing. Not confusing, just take it to the next level here. So, just like before, let's make 3 invoices. Any customers? Receive payments directly to checking on these invoices. And then I'm gonna do it over here because I'm running out of room. Make 2 more invoices. Receive the payments to deposit. But don't make the deposit yet. We'll go and make 3 sales receipts to payment to deposit. Then make the deposit. So this deposit is going to be a combo. It's going to have payments from invoices and also sales receipts payments. So see how advanced we're getting here? If your company does receive payments from invoices and direct payments from sales receipts, then this would be kind of deposit you have almost every day. Because you're going to have some checks coming in the mail and then some from the day's receipts. Combine them into one deposit. Now, depending on, just if you want to keep them separate, when you do your check marks, you'll see what type of payment it is. You can just, it makes two separate deposits if you want to, and do the same thing with the bank. Have two different piles and take them in separately. That's fine, but we're going to combine them. So I'm going to go ahead and make my 3 invoices and go back to receiving payments directly to checking. So I've got my 3 invoices done. Now I'm going to receive my payments, but for the first 3, I'm going to change it back to checking account. So now when I look at my check register, I haven't got my 3 accounts receivable invoice payments. All good. Now I'm ready to do my combo. At this point, I'll make 2 more invoices. Now I've created my invoices. I could go and receive the payments now to deposit, or I could wait till later. Just before I make the deposit, I have to receive them into the deposit. But I'll go ahead and receive them now. Good. So I got my 2 in. Now I'm going to work on my sales receipts. Now I'm ready for my deposit. So I said 2 and 3. So I can tell here by the type, I have 3 sales receipts and then 2 payments. You'll notice I put them in alphabetical order, but I can still count them up there. I've got it set to my checking account. Got to select all and save and close. So when you're done, you should see the most recent deposit. Yeah, there's like I have 2 and 2, the 2 different types. And it says one more because couldn't fit them on there. So that would be 5. When you go back to your customers, they should all have open balances of 0. And again, remembering the open balance is only dealing with the invoices. So if there was a problem on the sales receipts, it's not going to show up here. You can go back into the customer level and go that way. Or even if you go back into your sales receipts, you also have this little clock to go back in time and look at your last ones. If you find what's missing, you can find out what happened. And if you're like me, what happened was this thing right here. Sometimes it's easy to forget when you're in a hurry to switch over. And so if you've already made it as a deposit directly, it's not going to show up in your deposit to the bank. It's always the little things. But the good news is it's a little thing and easy to fix. I'm out of room on my whiteboard. So over here, I'm going to make a red box. And finally for tonight, go back to your inventory and reorder any items that are below your reorder point. If you don't have any, use the lowest quantity on hand. So you're going to make purchase orders. Receive the bills and pay with checking. So the first thing I need to do is go to my products and services. I'm low on 2 items, so it says low stock. And by the way, if you want to do more than just a couple purchase orders, by all means, restock. So let me take a look. I can look here. The quantity on hand, anything in red is below my reorder point. So I'm down to 1 flashlight and only 16 tire gauges. So, you should recall, the way we did it before was we went into expenses and vendors, and then pick a vendor and then create purchase order. Or I can also do it from this point on my flashlight where it says action. Use the drop-down list where it says edit. And reorder. So either way, brings up the purchase order, then I have to select the vendor from here. I'll just use a good old ABC warehouse. And they're selling pretty well, so I'm going to order 50. So my other one is tire gauges. I'm going to do it this way again. Reorder. Use my United distributors. I'm going to get 55. Now the way I did it, because I did it for my sales area, you can see this is selected. So now, to collect those purchase orders, receive the bills, that was the next step. I am going to go over to my expenses, vendors, and I can see I have 2 open purchase orders here. Just do them this way. Create bill. Add my purchase order into my bill. And I'll pay for them. You can see they're all done here. I'm going to tell it to clear the filter so I can see all my vendors. Their open balances are 0. Hooray. I go back into my products and services under sales. And now I have 0 low stock. Nobody's in the red. Go to my checking. And see all that beautiful profit is now going back into the business for more inventory. And so it goes. C'est la vie. C'est la business. So when you get that done, all of your customers should have open balances of 0. All your vendors should have open balances of 0. That means you got everybody. And we are done for the evening, unless there's any questions. Oh, another thing you can check if you just want to. You can always go to the register, the chart of accounts, and look at the register of undeposited funds or payments to deposit. And this should be empty too. Nothing outstanding. They're all received and the balance is 0. Oh, and a little side note. In this register, they're automatically reconciled. Meaning, if you made the deposit and you didn't fix it, it should have been reconciled immediately. So coming out of this account, the computer's assuming everything's correct. There's no need to go back to reconcile it. However, on your check register, you still do. Usually when the statement comes out at the end of the month or beginning of the month, you go through and make sure the deposits are accurate.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow. just go ahead and restart it. Should be ready for tomorrow. All right, have a good night. Yeah, I got this one here. All right, everybody have a good night.